And here you see sound being passed through iron filings and particles, and therefore creating form once again. And from these pictures, it's hardly difficult to see how the human body is formed through sound resonating energy, and how that physical form is held as long as that sound matrix is held. But once that changes, the physical body changes. So there you've seen, with stunning effect, how sound creates form, how galaxies are created, how planets are created. And all those planets, balls of particles, all those revolving galaxies were merely particles turned into that form by sound. And when you think, you create a sound and you change the world, or the world you're immediately living in. We are fundamentally in control of our lives. Here's a picture, because some of this energy that we give out, this energy that we are, can now be seen. Kirlian photography and other forms of photography can now picture the image of the energy that is actually animating our body. What is really the eternal us? And here you see someone's finger and the energy going off it. And the nature of that energy depends on what we're thinking and what we're feeling at the time. And here's some examples of how people on a psychic level and their psychic vision have seen the auras, the energy fields of people in different states of being. And indeed, if anyone's gone to some of these various spiritual and health expos and expositions around the world, they will have seen this aura photographing technology now, which can photograph the colors in the aura. And the colors change when our attitudes change. And here are different attitudes and phenomenally different colors and sequences appearing as a result of the sound and sound waves and thought waves that are generated when we change into different states of feeling. And the more we change our energy field, the more we draw in different people, different experiences, we change and we create our own reality. This is the energy field of a leaf. And what they've found is that when you cut part of a leaf away, that energy field, when you rephotograph it, holds the original blueprint shape of the leaf, even though part of it is gone, and it takes a while for that energy to reform itself into the new situation with the piece taken out of the leaf. And when people have limbs removed, of course, they feel for some time that the limb is still there. And then eventually that goes away, and that's the energy field reforming itself into the new situation as opposed to the one that was there before. So therefore, this energy that we're generating that can now be photographed and can certainly be felt when you meet someone and you say, oh, I've got bad vibes from them, or I've got good vibes from them, depending on their own state of being. This energy is the energy that creates our reality, because it attracts to us a reflection of itself, and what that energy reflects is our inner self, our emotional, spiritual, and mental state. So when we feel fear, we attract to us fear. We attract to us what we most fear. And this is the ultimate evolutionary genius. It's what I call designer evolution. Because of this system of what we put out is what we get back, we constantly see a reflection of our inner self in our everyday life. Therefore, we can see our inner self in a physical way and learn from the experience and move on. Also, fear is the greatest block on evolution. Whatever area that we fear, that our fear relates to, is a no-go area for our evolution. Because people don't normally say, well, I fear that, I'm going to face it. They go, oh, no, thank you very much, change the subject, not going in there. So this process of drawing to us what we put out means that we have to face what we're putting out, so we can face it and evolve. So when we fear something, we draw what we fear to us eventually. When we put out anger, we draw to us anger. When I was having my angry period, in the 1970s particularly, my life was a series of angry confrontations. I was working in the media and the BBC and all that stuff, and wherever I went, I was attracting angry people all the time. Even if I was in an apparently consciously calm state, my subconscious anger is still going out there and it's still pulling in angry people. Someone comes into a bar in that period and they'd had a bad day, they found me every time. And then I realized, and I started to ask a few questions, what's the common denominator of all these angry confrontations? Oh yes, it's you. So what goes on? What's causing them? Why? I started to realize, because I was angry, I was attracting anger. There was a lovely song that I came across by an American group which said, if you hold anger, guess what comes to you? A lot of very angry people do. And I certainly know that to be true. And when I've observed my own life and the lives of others, it's very obvious that what they're putting out in their state of being is creating their physical life. And there's nothing more debilitating, more controlling and limiting than the victim mentality. We're encouraged by this manipulation throughout our lives to see ourselves as victims, to blame someone else. Oh, I'm a victim, I'm in this situation because of A, B, C, D, and on it goes. And when we're in that state, we're going to stay in that state, because when you think you're a victim, the victim vibe goes out, the victim circumstance goes in. When you say, hey, I'm not a victim, I'm in control of my life, I've created these circumstances I don't like, therefore I can create circumstances I do. At that point, the victim mentality is gone. Victim circumstances stop being attracted, and suddenly people come into your life who are just the people you need to get you out of the circumstances you don't like. And if you don't realize what's happening, and most of us don't at the time, we say, oh my God, mate, I was so lucky. This fella came into my life at just the right time, this person, I couldn't believe it. Amazing luck. No. You pulled them in because your state of being had changed and you synced with what you needed to get out of that situation. We are so in control of our destiny, it's unbelievable. And yet billions are persuaded they're not, and therefore they create a very different reality. So if we're in fear, we can attract a reflection of fear. But when we emit love, we create a very different energy. Therefore, we create a very different reality. It's just a choice. Everything is just a choice. I keep hearing people say, oh, I had no choice, mate. I had to do it. We never have no choice. We have choices we like to make, choices we'd rather not make, but we never have no choice. It's a cop-out. And some people find it very difficult to take this on because it's much easier in their own mind to blame someone for what happens in our lives. Much more of a challenge to say, hey, I've created this. I'm responsible for it. But when you do, you stop creating what you don't like and you start creating what you do. And this love connection is the key to removing this manipulation and taking humanity onto another level of existence, another level of consciousness, which is what's happening to so many people in this period we're going through now. There's been some tremendous science that's going on over the last few years and is going on now. Open-minded science, which is challenging this tunnel vision that official science has to keep us from what's really going on. One excellent place of this research is called the HeartMath Institute in America. And what they've shown, and people like Greg Braden in his videos and a book called Awakening to Zero Point, which I would recommend, have been looking at and communicating, is this scientific confirmation that what I'm talking about here is not some airy-fairy concept, but is actually scientifically provable, as well as from our own experience. What they've shown, for instance, is if you put an empty jar with electrons in it, when you put a piece of DNA in it, that energy forms itself in the jar to the DNA form. When you take the DNA out, the energy still holds that DNA form. In other words, when we're walking through our lives in the supermarket or whatever, oh my goodness me, the price of fish this week. When we're doing all that stuff, we're actually resonating and changing the energy field around us in relation to our state of being. So you don't have to be kind of in front of a camera talking about this stuff. You can do it in your everyday life. If you go out with an open heart and love in your heart, you will be changing the energy field to that resonance of love wherever you go. insignificant, ordinary. There's not an ordinary man, woman, blade of grass, breath of air, insect, anything, anywhere in creation. But there are billions on this planet who think they are, so they live ordinary lives, just because they think they're ordinary. They are the extraordinary. They are genius waiting to happen. It's just a choice. It's just a thought. Another thing that's been established by this open-minded scientific research is that fear, because everything's about wavelengths and resonating energy to various frequencies, fear is a long, slow wavelength. And as the wavelength of fear passes through the DNA, it does not activate these various antennae which connect us to the bigger world, the bigger cosmic mind. But the wavelength of love is very quick, a very short wavelength, and therefore as it passes through us, it's activating these antennae all the time and connecting us to the outer world. Now this is interesting from many points of view, not least this. Everything relates to everything else the more you talk. The reason, or one key reason, why the imposition of fear and the manipulation of fear has been imposed upon the human race all these thousands of years since this control began, is because it comes from a level of knowledge that understands how these things work. It understands, therefore, that if we can be manipulated into a state of fear, we are disconnecting ourselves from the infinite mind, who we really are, and the eggshells start to form. When we open ourselves to love and this heart vortex opens, we start to reconnect with all that exists and all we really are. So the pressure has been to keep us in fear and to keep us in conflict, i.e. fear. And also it's been understood that because we create our own reality by our state of being, our imagination of ourselves, it's been understood that if through outside influences, manipulations, propaganda, etc., our imagination of ourselves can be manipulated to be ordinary man and woman in the street, I've got no power, then through this process, our imagination of self, I am ordinary and powerless, will create a physical experience of being ordinary and powerless. So therefore, billions of people on this planet are being manipulated through this process of indoctrination to create a lifetime of ordinary, powerless existence, when if this changes, it's all gone. This is where astrological energies come in. Oh, it's astrology. It's the devil. Why has religion been used so much to convince people that astrology is the devil? Oh my goodness me. Because we're not supposed to realize the power of astrology. If you look at an astrological reading in a tabloid newspaper, we're not interested. But when you look at it as a science, it's very simple. The planets are constantly moving. They're constantly, therefore, in the various combinations they make in their orbits, they're affecting and changing the energy field of the Earth. We live in that energy field. When the Earth's energy field changes, we are affected. Therefore, planetary sequences affect the Earth's energy field, and we're affected. Astrology. So when we're born at a certain time in a certain place, when we're born, some people say conception, I wouldn't dismiss that. When we're born, however, we take on the energy field in that place at that time. And as we go through our lives, that energy field we took on at birth, because of the place and the time we were born, and the places of the planets were at that time, then that interacts with the planetary movements through our lives in a different way to someone born 10 minutes or 10 months later or 10 years later at a different time, because they will have taken on a different energy field because the planets were in a different place. Therefore, the planetary energy field of the Earth would have been different at the time they were born. And so we interacted in different ways through our lives. This is why they've shown so often, again and again and again, that twins that are separated at birth, when they find each other in adult life, the lives they've led and the things that they've done have been incredibly similar, because they took on basically the same energy field at birth. But particularly the Roman Catholic Church has been used to get us to think that either on that level of the Roman Catholic Church it's the devil, or science, the other wing of this manipulation of spirituality, says that actually the whole thing's a load of nonsense and there's no scientific basis. Well, insult my intelligence a bit more. Why is it, if it's a nonsense, does this brotherhood have key times, key places to have its summits, its economic collapses, its meetings, to set up its companies? Why have I met so many astrologers around the world who are on retainers from transnational corporations to tell them when the best time is to launch a new product, to do a takeover or whatever? Because they understand that astrology is reality, because it's the manipulation of energy. They just don't want us to know it. And of course, Christianity and other religions have been used to destroy the credibility of astrology and these other esoteric concepts, which has created a position of enormous irony. So many in the Christian patriot movement in America have sussed and realized that the basic manipulation is going on and the nature of the scam. But they have been persuaded that the way to bring an end to the scam is the devil incarnate and the Antichrist. So they've identified the prison, but they won't go through the door to get out of it. So we are beings that come into physical incarnation, and we are trying to balance these various pressures and energies and manifest a balanced whole. So incredible challenge in this dense physical world, and we need to be kind to ourselves that this is happening, because so often the challenges that we get are really, really extreme, especially now as this change unfolds. We need to be kind to ourselves, because this is not an easy place to live and to evolve because of the pressures we're being asked to balance. But the evolutionary spiral is so simple. Someone said to me once, that evolution is like going round a mountain. You keep facing the same view, but you see it completely differently, from a completely different angle. So down here in the evolutionary spiral, you'll have an experience, and you'll say, it was his fault, it's your fault that I'm in trouble, and how dare you. And then as you evolve, you face exactly the same experience, but then you say, why have I created this? What does it say about me? What is there to learn? Okay, got it, evolve. Same experience, different perception, higher level of evolution. Now we are at the point, I've mentioned a number of times in these last few hours, where we're at the end of a 26,000-year cycle. As I travel the world, it's obvious that there's an awakening going on, and again, the science is starting to identify it. Some years ago, a different pulse, a different resonance was identified in the center of the spiral of the galaxy. More recently, probes that have gone to investigate what's going on the sun have identified that tremendous changes are going on in the sun. Its magnetic field is falling, and there's incredible solar flare activity that's starting to emerge, which will be very powerful in the years ahead and fundamentally affect us. So you've had the different resonance coming out of the center of the galaxy and affecting the sun. The sun is changing. When the sun changes, we change. 99% of the mass of the solar system. It's now very demonstrably been identified as being passed on to the Earth. Tremendous changes are happening in the Earth's field. Magnetics are falling. Many phenomena are unfolding as a result of this changing frequency that's come out of the galaxy. And open-minded research has also identified how the Earth connects into the human form. The resonant frequency of the Earth comes in at the heart chakra point, the love point. And from there it goes to the brain, and the brain transmits it to every cell in the body. So when you follow this sequence, this is why people are waking up at this time in increasingly vast numbers. The frequency changes the center of the galaxy. It comes to the sun, the center of this solar system. Brings about change there. From there it goes out to the planets of the solar system, to the Earth. The Earth manifests its changes. We live in the Earth's field. It affects humanity. And now this rising frequency, this changing energy field, is starting to dramatically change life on Earth, and we've seen nothing yet. If we shut down the heart, or if we get into the intellect, which follows the kind of intellectual programming instead of following the intuition of the heart, then we can switch off this connection with the cosmos, this connection through this sequence out into infinity, when the head shuts down and shuts down the heart. And that has been the process of the education system and other institutions. It's been to get people to close their heart down and get stuck, imprisoned in the head. Therefore, we switch off the cosmos and live in the eggshell. We keep coming back to the same thing. People like Greg Braden and others have started to focus on this particular image. Back in 1899, something was identified called Schumann cavity resonance. What it was the heartbeat, the frequency beat of the Earth. From the time of its discovery, 1899, to 1986, this heartbeat frequency was a constant 7 cycles, 7.8 hertz a second. Constant. Boom, 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 boom. From 1986 onwards, it started to rise dramatically. Just when people started to wake up in increasing numbers. It's gone through 9, apparently the last I heard it was gone through 10 cycles. And the projection is that by 2012, which is the point the Maya say in their calendar, and so many other calendars point to the same period, that the jump will be made from this cycle of human evolution into the next one as the 26,000-year cycle comes to an end and we enter the start of the next one. At the same time that this resonant frequency of the Earth, boom, 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 is getting quicker, and therefore affecting us, coming in through the heart for those that are open, and resonate in our bodies increasingly, and changing our minds and our perception of life, the magnetics of the planet are also dropping, like they are on the sun, very dramatically. 2,000 years ago was the peak of this cycle when the Earth's magnetic field was at its most powerful. It's been falling ever since, and it falls exponentially. The quicker it falls, the more it falls. The more it falls, the quicker it falls. And the projection is that what Braden calls 0 point, 2012, is that the magnetics will reach virtually zero, if not zero, on the planet, and 13 cycles a second will be reached by the Schumann cavity resonance, the heartbeat. Now, one thing's for sure, at that time, The Price is Right ain't going to be on the telly, because this world is going to be very, very different by then. And this is what we're heading for now. Now, the reason this brotherhood have focused on the millennium rather than this real point of change, because we have the millennium because of the Gregorian calendar, which came out of the Vatican, they are trying to do a situation through the microchipping whereby we are held back artificially from making this leap of consciousness into a totally different state of being. Why is the magnetics of the planet falling? Very simple. When you put an electrical charge through an iron bar, it creates a north and south pole. When you put the charge the other way, the poles magnetically flip. If you look at the geological and other evidence, this has happened again and again on this planet, many, many times. There has been a magnetic pole shift when the whole magnetic field of the Earth has flipped, which has, of course, serious consequences and brings about tremendous change. Now, what is it that creates the Earth's magnetic field? It is the Earth spinning. Therefore, it throws out this electrical charge that creates the Earth's magnetic field. One other thing that's being identified as this change unfolds is that the Earth is spinning slower and slower. As it does so, the power of the magnetic field that it creates is getting less and less powerful. And again, the projection is around 2012 that the Earth could stop spinning altogether for about 3 days and then start to spin the other way. And what will happen at that point? The poles will flip magnetically. And the poles will change And that, the geological and other records show, has happened again many times. Indeed, you look at some of the ancient texts and descriptions, they talk about phenomena that fit very well into this happening before. They talk about the longest day, the longest night, and what have you. So we're entering a period of fantastic change which is getting faster all the time. And we have two challenges here. Two challenges, one after the other. The first is to open our minds, start taking responsibility back, and remove this edifice of control and suppression of information, which will allow the full flow of knowledge of who we are to flood into the public arena. Once people get access to that information and start to realize who they really are and the nature of life, then we can go into stage 2, which is the incredible consciousness shift that is going to happen and is happening for many people already, but can happen for everybody if we open up to the knowledge of what's going on. And to do that, the edifice of suppression has to go. And what I see so often in the kind of what we call the New Age movement is they're focusing on the second bit and they're in denial about the first. And the second is not going to happen for many people unless we remove the edifice of suppression, because most people are going to think, what the heck's going on? They're going to go through this great change in a complete fog of what's happening. Tremendous fear. Oh my goodness me, what's happening? So there's two things to do here. One is to start focusing on how the world's controlled, identifying it, removing it. Secondly, then we can concentrate unhindered on the transformation spiritually that is unfolding to the year 2012 and beyond. One area too, key area, because I mentioned the Gregorian calendar, that has been used to control us and de-link us from who we really are, is the manipulation of time. This planet works on moon time, 13 moon years. That's the sequence of time that we work on. Naturally, that's what nature is connected to. That's what the woman's menstrual cycle is connected to. But we're not connected to that. We're connected to this, time as measured artificially. As a result, we have become de-linked from the natural flow of time. We've become de-linked from the cosmos. This is why native people who don't work with these things, who aren't slaves to the watch and the clock, are much more in tune with nature because they're resonating in the same time flow as nature. And where is time measured from on this planet? Greenwich, London, in the heart of the manipulation of the Brotherhood at operational level for so long, right to the present day. No accident. So we have a situation where the idea has been to turn us into left brain prisoners. Even conventional science accepts that the left brain is where we get intellect, logic, physical worldview. Can I touch it, taste it, smell it? Okay, it must exist. In the right brain, you have the bigger picture, the connection with the cosmos. That's where the artist, the inspiration, the creativity comes from. And if you look at the institutions of education, of science, and all these different areas of information, the media too, they're pumping information of a left brain variety and suppressing this. So you get a situation where what we call education works like this. Information is pumped into the left brain, most of it completely rubbish. And what people are asked to do, students are asked to do, is to hold that information there, and then when they get an exam paper in front of them, to regurgitate that onto the paper. If they remember it and put it there well enough, and repeat what they've been told, they pass the exam and progress. If they take that information in the left brain, transfer it to the right and start filtering it and questioning it, and saying, well, does it make sense? What do I think about this? And then tell the exam paper, oh, actually, it's a piece of shit, this stuff. Then they don't pass the exam, and they don't progress. The education system is completely built to create left brain prisoners who are basically sponges of the official version of life. And if you're a scientist, for instance, you go through that, and then you go to your speciality in science, and you get more left brain information. Same with doctors and all these professions. They're left brain prisoners who cannot conceive so much of what I've been talking about here because they're imprisoned in the intellect. we can just balance those two sides of the brain, the intellect and the spirit, the mind and the heart, then suddenly we are transformed in terms of our perception of ourselves. Well, this is a symbol that kind of encapsulates, I think, how we are disconnected from who we really are, and the process that so many people are going through now to remove that division so we can reconnect. What you're looking at there symbolically is I call it lower vibrational emotional range. It's the range of frequency that resonates the energy within us to fear, to guilt, to resentment, to lack of self-esteem. And the more that we are manipulated to feel those things, and the more we manipulate each other to feel those things, the more what I call that cesspit vibration of low vibrational emotion gets more and more full and more difficult to get through, and therefore out to the multidimensional state that we can get into as we reconnect with the ocean, with the cosmos. And this is why when people start on this spiritual journey, my goodness me, I was there myself, over the last 10 years or so, the reason that they start to realize when they start to walk the journey that all hell breaks loose in their life, that structures break down in their life, and they think, crikey, if this is spiritual. I remember me, when I started